Hello, everybody. It's Tuesday night. It's 7 o'clock, and we are live. Hello, everybody. It's Tuesday night. It's 7 o'clock, and we are live. Welcome to VTALKS. I'm your host, Veronica Brockwell. So, are your children arguing? Is there constant chaos in your house? Are your kids having meltdowns? Are you having a meltdown? Well, our VTALKS panel of experts are here tonight, and they're going to help you maneuver through all of this. Please welcome to the VTALKS, Hannah Chapman and Brianne Lienkamp, as we start our three-part parenting series called Raising Good Humans. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Very good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So this is a three-part series, and tonight is part one called Elementary Tug of War. And we're going to help you, right? That was, Hannah, that was a great title.
Who came up with it? I can't remember. Was it me or you, Brianne?
I think I came up with the tug of war.
Okay, here we go.
I have this
amazing
mental
visual,
image.
right?
Yes,
visual.
Totally. But before we get started, I'd like for the two of you to talk a little bit about your experience with children and really just to help educate us on your background. Hannah, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I've been working as in psych for a couple years now. My background is actually as a nurse is with adults because it's kind of people know in nursing, and this applies to many areas of medicine, pediatrics is like such a specialty. And we found the same coming into the field that I'm in now. But I have really actually found a special. I really love that working with the kids. I think for me, we work with kids of all ages. I think our youngest Brianne is 6 6 all the way up, and through. I tend to work more with like the teenagers. That tends to be like my favorite group of kids to work with. But we do a lot of talk therapy, teaching people coping strategies, how to deal with their feelings in a healthy way. And I think the thing that I like the most about working with kids is that you kind of have a really big opportunity to make a difference, so that we kind of right the wrongs ahead of time, if that makes sense. You might save them from some of the heartache that maybe you've experienced or others have experienced in their life, because maybe they didn't have, because maybe we didn't have the same resources that we can give to them now. So.
And Brianne, how about you?
Yeah, I'm an adult and psychiatric nurse practitioner through the lifespan. Prior to that, I received a bachelor's in science psychology specialization with developmental disabilities. So that was what I did prior to going into nursing. And I had such great experience with working with children with developmental disabilities in long-term residential settings. And I have two kids of my own, one who has ADHD, which is, hyperactivity and attentiveness, and had a lot of medical issues, which also was a contributing factor to some behaviors. And, so I think personal experience and professional experience has definitely been a bonus in trying to help other families to try to navigate, some of the challenges that come from emotional dysregulation, not having coping skills. It's not something that we're born with. It's something that we develop over time. And as Hannah said, if we can do that early on and set boundaries early on, then we can really try to help that child and help the family as a unit.
Yeah.
Well, if I don't know if you saw, the recent marketing that I did today. It was very lighthearted. Kids running around, parents upset, holding their head. So it was very, very tongue in cheek. But this is an incredibly serious issue and important to identify. And this behavior when children are young, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very stressful. I think it takes a toll on your marriage. It can take a toll on siblings in the family if one child is getting all the attention that's negative because they have no boundaries. They don't know how to express themselves. Maybe they're nonverbal. I mean, there's so many factors that really come into raising children. It's something we all go through, tantrums in the grocery store and screaming and yelling, and I'm jumping out of the car and I'm jumping out of the window. And, it's very stressful to come home from a day of work, or if you're someone who stays at home with your children, it really is such an impact in your life. So having these skills can make for much smoother, quieter, better days as a family.
And let's be honest, you have a child, they don't really give you any instructions. You're kind of, you're kind of on your own, and you hope that the people around you know what they're doing, but sometimes they don't even know what they're doing, and they're the ones teaching you. So this is important stuff, guys.
Yeah, I think it's an assumption that these things should just come naturally. And I hear that a lot with people that I work with that are parents, and, am I doing the right thing? And I say to them all the time, sometimes you just got to do the best that you can. There's, what I mean? You just saying that made me laugh. It made me think about my friends when they had their first baby, and we were talking, oh, how have things been going? And the first thing they said was they got home and they looked at their son and they looked at each other and they were like, did they really just let us take him home? We don't know what we're doing. Do they know that we don't know what we're doing?
I don't.
But it is amazing when you think about it that way. You're just figuring it out as you go.
Yeah.
Try to adopt a dog.
Yeah.
That's interesting, right? Like that is a process.
It's a lot of work.
It is. It's a lot of work. You have to set a lot of boundaries.
Right. No, but when you adopt an animal, you go through this huge process. When you have a baby at the hospital, they're going, here you go.
It's so true. It's so true. It's so true. And if you have any healthcare knowledge, sometimes it's just automatically assumed you know what you're doing, and
so that's not the case.
It's not. Yeah, no. You don't know. You don't have that training.
No, not at all.
No.
All right, so tonight is elementary tug of war. So we're dealing with this part of the 3-part series is the younger kids, right? So let's get started with that. We have right here 2 letters, N-O. Who's covering this?
This is mine. This is my baby.
All right, Hannah, let's do it.
Really what this is ultimately about is boundaries, is what it really comes down to. And setting boundaries, but also expectations with kids. It gets obviously more difficult as they get older because they go to school, they start to see what other people are doing. And I find that, I think that that's probably, I would imagine, I'm not lucky enough to have kids yet, but I think is one of the most challenging things is when your kid does get old enough to actually say no. For a little while there, they kind of just do what they're told because they're kind of, they're developmentally just okay, mama, but once they start to develop that personality, and that sense of self,
Yeah.
they are able to say no. And for a lot of parents, I think it can be really difficult for them. It kind of, for some people, I think I can say, my dad's from another country. I think there's cultural components that come into
Oh,
that of, you know, you saying, kids saying no, it's disrespectful. But the irony, I think, is that actually they're putting their boundaries down without really knowing that they're doing that. So it's just about, I think, being open and upfront and discussing like boundaries and expectations in the household. So, you know, types of situations that you're probably going to most likely see this come up in is, what's the most common thing that we know that we ask our kids to do around the house is doing chores or behaving a certain way when you're out in public, you know, setting that expectation that you're not allowed to behave that way. This is not how we behave. When you come home from school or when you're playing with your toys, these are where the toys go. We're going to show you where that goes. And, as far as, quote unquote consequences for what happens when those boundaries are being crossed, of that's, we're not going to get, I'm not comfortable telling people how to do that with their kids. And I also want to preface it by saying this can be a touchy subject because
yeah.
when we see this a lot in the office, I don't know about you, Brianne, but I'm always kind of cautious of what to tell people because I don't ever want to tell someone how to parent their child. And so it just for this part of what we're talking about is really just talking about how to help the parents communicate their expectations to their kids. So, and that can be by using like different types of strategies. So, you know, we're talking elementary school, so 5, 6,
Mhm.
that can definitely, be having like chore boards or, just coming up with like a routine in the afternoon to help kids like meet those boundaries and expectations. I think one of the other ones that you have to be really that we have to be prepared to deal with is, like I said, kids go to school, they come home. Well, Sarah doesn't have to do that when she's at home. I went to Sarah's house and Sarah's mom
Oh
doesn't make
boy.
her, help clean up her toy. Sarah's mom cleans up her toys for her.
Yeah.
So,
There
you know,
you go.
how do you navigate that, And
Thanks, Sarah's mom.
thanks a lot, Lisa. Yeah, I mean, definitely.
Right?
But I really think that, I don't know. And again, Brianne, feel free to like hop in, but I think sometimes we don't give kids enough credit for being as intelligent and like aware as they really are. Like, I think people, like, I don't know, I feel like you can talk to them. Like, you can, remember they're mindful enough at this point to tell you no, to put down their boundaries. So it's all about how you deliver that to them. Like, well, honey, mom and dad, or your parents are working, we both work, and maybe her friends parents don't work, or we need help around the house because we're busy during the day. So by you cleaning up your toys, you're helping us, explaining it, because again, like, I just wouldn't don't shortchange how much the kids can understand if you put it to them in a way that they can understand it.
Like we're a family and we all work
Right.
together. And if one of the pieces isn't,
Right.
doing their
And
share,
they
we
get
can't
that.
work together. So really talk to them in a way that they possibly might comprehend
Right.
Yeah.
instead of maybe saying, no, that's just how it is. You do
Right.
this.
Yeah.
It's more like we're working together as a family.
Right.
So that's a strategy, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
And so we talked about this earlier, but how young should you start really explaining how things work, would you say? Like the younger,
Really,
the
I
better?
mean, we do have, 6-year-olds that come in that are able to completely understand what we're saying. A 4-year-old, you can do different strategies, going back to the communication piece. That's everything. Getting on a child's level, using eye contact.
Yeah.
Sometimes you as a parent saying no can fuel the fire even more, that you're going to get into this argument that isn't worth getting into. If that child isn't ready to take that direction, and you try to just continue to say, but this is what you need to do, and you need to do it now, and no, and no, and then the parent starts to get angry or upset or emotional, and now they're having trouble reeling it back in.
Yeah.
So the sooner the better, the earlier the better, to put these, lay it down on the line that this is not going to be accepted to have this behavior in the grocery store. It's not accepted to have this behavior at home. This, however, is the acceptable behavior. And I'm going to show you how to do that, because that's what kids are doing. They're watching what you're doing. So if you're losing your mind, going wild and screaming and yelling and not able to keep it together, guess what your child is going to
I was just going to say, they mirror your behavior, right?
Yeah.
And you're doing this because you're busy.
Right.
You're in a hurry. You have 5 minutes. You have to get to work. They got to get dressed. I got to get them their teeth brushed, all that stuff. And you got to go. So what happens a lot of times?
Yeah.
It's the blow up.
It's the blow up.
It's
right.
And I'm going to tell, I do not have children. So listen, parents out there, you are amazing. I really, I just, that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this, because I have so many friends that struggle on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I can't help them. I have no idea, but you ladies can.
Yeah. The struggle is real. The struggle is real. And I think that morning routine is very, very difficult. And, we end up actually getting families coming into the office, because it isn't just one part of the family member.
Right.
It really is the parent saying, well, can you give me a strategy? I really struggle at this time. Yeah. We have the timers. We set this. I have rewards. It's still like the child's still screaming onto the bus. And what does the parent do? They come indoor, they get ready to work, and they're just so guilty. They feel guilty because that's not how they wanted it to go for their child.
No, nobody wants that.
No, because then what happens to the child too? It's not a good feeling for anybody.
Yeah.
No. All right. So we have 2 letters, N-O, right? So now we have, what do we have next? So we were talking about comparison to other families. So we talked about that. Emotional fallout. We've talked about that. Emotional deregulation. So is that a meltdown?
Oh yeah. Meltdown.
I had a little emotional deregulation yesterday.
I did this morning.
And it was because my dog, who is a golden doodle, jetted out the front door in the pouring rain at night.
Not good.
That's scary.
And I had a little emotional dysregulation.
I think we all do.
That's going to be my new word.
There you go. I'm
right.
feeling emotionally dysregulated.
No, we all do. And it's really the inability or some difficulty in controlling emotions. And we're humans. We have a lot of emotions. So when someone is dysregulated, it might be tantrums. It might be screaming and crying in the grocery store because you didn't get that piece of candy that you wanted. It could be through the whole entire lifespan that we all have these times where we're just, how do we take the anger, the irritability, the frustration, the anxiety, all these emotions that happen, especially when we're not getting something that we want, or things don't go our way, or like something like that, where you were afraid that your dog was going to get hurt, like someone that you love. You don't know. They're in the dark. It's raining, and you probably had a million emotions going on. So yeah, that's
one, that she waited till it started pouring down rain, and I was not fully clothed. So those are like, this is a problem. But no, we're talking about children, not dogs. But I was just talking about, we all have emotional dysregulation. So I have a question. Well, I mean, I just have a couple questions and comments as we're talking about this from our viewers. My child refuses to brush her teeth, has a meltdown on the floor every single time I try to brush her teeth. Here's another one. How do I handle it when my child screams in public places when he doesn't get his way? I know the parents are sitting here like, oh my God, yes. Oh my God. My child won't stop hitting his older sister.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, I think I guess we'll start with the the brushing their teeth, because reminded me of something that I meant to say. We were talking about like the nose stuff, which
Yeah.
is like, find like, why don't you want to brush your teeth? Like, really getting to the, no pun intended, the root of the problem.
Uh-huh.
But, but
That's
really, like,
it.
what, like, you know,
Yeah.
because I mean, this, we're talking about young children, but depression and anxiety 100% can happen with young kids.
Sure.
My immediate reaction to that is, are they depressed? Because, that's like a basic hygiene thing. Not that I'm saying that's what's going on, but my point is really, I'm willing to bet it's more than just, I don't want to brush my teeth. Is it could also just be as something as simple as like, I don't like the way it tastes. And then you could be like, all right, well, let's go to the store and find a different toothpaste that tastes better. Like,
Yeah.
it
Right.
could be like, I'm afraid that I'm going to break my tooth, or anything, but really finding out like, why don't you want to brush your teeth? And then you can kind of go from there with, maybe like I said, let's just say it's something like an irrational fear of like, well, if I brush my teeth, I'm going to break it. you know you have the discussion like, honey, you're not going to break, you're actually, brushing your teeth is going to help you to not break your teeth. They're less likely to break if you brush them, or whatever it is. If it's something like, I just don't feel like it. Well, why do you like, what isn't, and maybe like, again, having the conversation and pushing them a little bit, like, well, what do you think it means when you brush your teeth? Like, do you know what it, when when, what is brushing our teeth? It's part of taking care of ourselves. And part of taking care of ourselves is being nice to ourselves. And that's one way that you can do that, is to brush your teeth every day and take care of your teeth, and help to take care of yourself.
Yeah, and maybe there was an experience that happened that is a trigger for that
Right.
child to not brush their teeth. Maybe they went to the dentist and it was painful for
Mhm.
them. Maybe they went to the dentist and it was a traumatic experience for them. I mean, kids take
Yeah.
experiences and they might put them in a box that maybe you never saw as the parent. And as more we can kind of dig into the fears or anxieties or the reasoning behind it, then we can come up with a plan. Sometimes if parents are working and they're really busy, maybe that bedtime routine is the only time they see their parents in the course of that day. And guess what? If I put up a fight, my parents going to be there and they're catering to
Right.
me and they're giving me attention, and
Right.
so by perpetuating that type of behavior, then that's where it becomes an unhealthy
Yeah.
coping strategy. So it could be many, many different reasons as to why a child is refusing.
Right. And then what if nothing is working and you can't make that happen? What does the parent do then?
Yeah, you can have behavioral therapy. You can use different interventions with someone outside of the home to
Mm.
help come up with that plan. At
Mhm.
this time, we're going to go upstairs or to the bathroom. And this time, this is the routine. We're going to put the toothpaste on. What kind of flavor do you like? Do you like mint? Do you like this? And trying to really come up with a plan that maybe is set forth by somebody else.
Okay.
Oftentimes, maybe that actually can be something a benefit to a family that's really struggling with that one-on-one time. And, they're are so many interventions that you can try first before you get to that place. But yeah, sometimes it does get to that place where
Yeah.
it just, you need that extra help, which is fine.
Mhm.
Right. And I'm sure the same goes with, trying to get children to eat, different types of food. I'm sure. So that's probably another place where parents struggle, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And, and I think around the food, it is something that can be a lifelong journey. Another way that we can show kids that food can be seen in a certain way,
Mhm.
so that it doesn't turn into an unhealthy coping strategy in the future. So I think it's, yeah, we're setting the stage in so many just basic things that we do every day that maybe sometimes we do take for granted, or how we respond to them can trigger some other events like eating disorders later on in life, or
Because a lot of kids, they don't want to eat their vegetables. They're
Yeah.
like really happy eating, the fun stuff.
yeah.
But it's important to eat vegetables and other things that you have to acquire a taste for.
Right.
How do you get that to happen? That's something that I've heard from parents.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it goes back to like explaining intention, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, you know, to Brianne's point, we don't want to cause these unhealthy relationships with food or things like that, but intention, like we're eating vegetables because, it's good. It helps you grow. You're little. We need you to grow. And, we're having you brush your teeth because
Yeah.
like we got to keep your teeth. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want those things to happen. And really just how you frame it is, I think, what's most important. Like what's the intent and behind whatever function it is that you're doing. You know what I mean? And make and framing it in a way that's positive, because I think kids are so much more likely to respond to that if it's more of like a positive thing versus something that that's negative or they need to be afraid of.
And
Let me ask you, in your practice, I know you work with a lot of children. What are some of the issues you see the most with elementary aged children and families?
yeah, I think ADHD is a big thing that we see at the
Mhm.
practice, and it's the defiance, it's the impulsivity, it is the overwhelm. I can't clean my room because I don't know where to start. And that is even with the young
Yeah.
kids. And, we try to instill with them in many different ways. We do cognitive behavioral therapy games, cards, in different scenarios to try to allow them to communicate in an effective way. Sometimes when we're dealing with ADHD, specifically attention deficit, that we have to kind of bring the age down a couple years in terms of that emotional ability, because what we see is if we don't communicate the right way, a lot of these kids end up feeling like they're the bad kids.
Yeah.
I'm bad. I can do this because I'm not good. At school I got in trouble because I was talking. At school I got put into the hallway. At home I'm getting yelled at because I'm not cleaning my room. At home I can't follow directions. And that breeds anxiety, and it brings out depression. And
Yeah.
so it's looking at whatever the situation is, and really bringing it to whatever level we need to bring it to, and incorporating many different strategies.
So, how common is ADHD?
Oh, it's really common. It's probably, you know, more common than what the literature shows, but it is very common. It's, I think, to Brianne's point, a lot of the times that it goes unnoticed is because so if we're going by kind of stereotypes, the boys tend to be the troublemakers, the getting in trouble in class, they're, not able to sit in their seat, or they tend to be more, the boys will tend to manifest more as like the physical hyperactive,
Mhm.
whereas girls tend to be more of the quote unquote daydreamers, the chatting to your friend next to you in class, and the kids that you're being told, come and sit at the front you need to sit at the front of the class because you're chatty Cathy back there talking to everybody. um yeah, I mean, hi, it's me, hi.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Um, yeah,
Maybe.
but
Is there a test?
yes, there is. Yeah, but we see it all the time, and I
Yeah.
think that's why this stuff is so important to try and pick up. And I think here's the thing. I want, 'cause I'm not a mom, but I would imagine I'll never forget having a kid that came in. She was very young when she first came to us, and she was having a really hard time, and I had to have a really, really serious talk with her parents about what was going on with her. And I said to Brianne, I said, I feel like I'm giving a cancer diagnosis. Like, not that that is anywhere near the same thing, but in the sense of when you are telling a parent that there is something wrong with their child, it's a really hard talk to have. People don't want things to be wrong
No.
with their kids. They don't want their kids to have a battle to face in their life that's going to make their lives more difficult. Like, that is probably, I think, one of the hardest things we have to do is recognizing when there is something going on, like ADHD or anxiety or depression, and having that hard talk with the parent of like, again, how are we framing this? Like, listen, this is an opportunity. This isn't a bad thing. Like, it's
Mhm.
better to pick up on these things now,
Right.
because we know specifically, if you look at ADHD, the rates of substance use disorder go through the roof if you have an untreated ADHD. So is it going to be maybe difficult to deal with in the beginning? Yeah, I'm not going to say that it's easy, but to take away some of that lifelong struggle of, I'm a bad kid, I can't pay attention, I'm not doing well in school. Those are the things that lead to bad coping habits, kids starting to use drugs, alcohol, whatever it is. So it seems like something that's not that big of a deal, and it's okay to sweep it under the carpet, but the reality is these things, it's a snowball effect.
Mm.
And that's where a lot of the things we see is we see adults that have had this going on since childhood, and now we're seeing the fallout of what that looks like.
Right. And then we touched upon anxiety.
Hmm.
Um, do you want to touch upon that a little
Yeah.
bit?
Go ahead,
I
Brianne.
mean, as Hannah said,
Yeah.
think about a child with anxiety who maybe has comorbid conditions like ADHD, or there's a higher rate of mood disorders. So we do see depression in kids. It's real. It happens. It's a flag to
Yeah.
us that maybe there's something more to come. And it really kind of sets the tone for negative thinking patterns, that I'm not smart, I have something wrong with me. And with those negative thoughts, we do see the depression piece. And right now with social media, it's so easy for children, of even young children, to access what is depression? What is anxiety? What is this? And with the prevalence of just the ease of being able to turn to drugs, alcohol, I mean, it's just, for these kids nowadays, it's a different generation,
Yeah.
and they have access to so much more that they really shouldn't. And you have to believe that anything off the street at this moment in time is laced with fentanyl.
Mm.
100%. We're seeing it in the drug testing that we're doing. We're seeing it in, pretty scary quantities of,
Really.
just the amount of alcohol that's being consumed by some of our kids, even at 10 years old, vaping, 11. I mean, these are
Babies.
their brains that are still developing. And, it's the more that we can help these kids now, hopefully we can prevent making these choices that can impact their life
Yeah.
and their
And
mood.
yeah, and we didn't actually discuss any of this in our outline. So thank you guys for you just know your stuff. So that's how wonderful these ladies are. Let's talk about the effects of alcohol and drugs on a developing brain.
Yeah.
What I mean, just in general, we know it's a problem, but if your brain is not developed, how does that affect the long-term health?
Yeah, I mean, when we go through schooling, one of the things that we talk about and spend a lot of time on, and we when we take our board exams, it's one of the biggest things that they emphasize that we need to know, but it's like your stages of development as a child and all the way through your life. Um, and when you look at the things that happen, when you're a kid, and to even like, when I think elementary, I think K through 6, right? Like 5th,
Yeah,
6th grade.
sure.
But 6th grade, you're what, like 11,
Mhm.
12 years old, and
Yeah.
that I cannot stress enough from a developmental perspective, that is the time where kids figure out who they are,
Mhm.
where they belong, who they want to be. It's a very huge time of just like self-discovery.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, backing it up to when they're younger, you know, if they're well, let me first say, like, if we know that we just talked about, if they're not using like proper skills when they're younger, that can manifest as them using drugs and alcohol when they're older. But one of the things that we've seen is, from a brain development perspective, is, let's say that these kids do have an underlying mental health disorder.
Mhm.
One of the things that there's a lot of like research that talks about is kids who have underlying schizophrenia or underlying severe bipolar, who start using marijuana thinking it's like not a big deal, and it turns on a gene in your brain that just starts to exhibit a disease that may never have gotten turned on in the
Oh,
first place. So this
wow.
is like the future of psychiatry, is we
Mm.
call it epigenetics. Like,
Yeah.
you know, our we all have genes, every single one of us. I could have a schizophrenia gene, like, but it's a matter of like what in your life, what environment in your life turns that gene on. It could be trauma, but it
Mhm.
could also be alcohol, drugs, substance use. We've seen it multiple times. And the sad thing about it is, once those genes get turned on, sometimes you can't get them to settle back down.
Yeah.
And now you're sitting here living with like a chronic, mental health disease for the rest of your life. And that's like a huge burden to have on yourself
Sure.
for a serious mental health
Yeah.
problem.
And think about your ability to do your schoolwork, to do
Yep.
your homework. We start seeing changes in the memory. That's real. We start seeing worsening of behaviors,
Mm.
impulsivity, attention deficits, because the brain can be so stimulated by
Yeah.
some of these substances. A big one right now for the kids is like these prime drinks, which the caffeine levels, the potassium levels are
Oh,
way
yeah.
beyond what is recommended for theythey're not carded. They go right into the store, they get their drinks, and then they might get a Coke on top of that. They might get another caffeinated beverage, and it's really, really scary, but that impacts their brain as well. And
Mm.
it's just they don't know the difference. They don't know that that's not safe for them. And so there's a lot of implications that come from using things and that maybe are not that great for your brain at that age, because because it's developing.
Yeah.
Sure. Sure.
We have a
So
long time until that stops. I
I
mean,
know you must
elementary,
think.
like, I mean, I don't think your brain is fully formed until like you're in your early 20s. I mean, there's a reason that, we consider in a lot of psychiatry, we under the age of what, 24, Brianne, is what we consider to still be like quote unquote pediatric dose. At least this is how we practice. And that's because your brain's not, your brain's not fully developed.
Yeah. We can drive at a certain age. We can drink until a certain age. These age parameters are put in place for a reason.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to scare parents right
No.
now at all. I mean, I think that a lot of the things we're talking about, if the earlier methods don't work, then you might need to seek a professional diagnosis, right? Like it's right. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really what we're saying.
Yeah, and sometimes that's where it has to lead, and I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying before, which is like it's never fun and it's heartbreaking to have to maybe be faced with the fact that like your kid might have something that's on their in their lap that is going to make life a little bit more challenging for them, you know but the best thing you can do is to get them that help, and that just comes from mental health stigma in my opinion, and that's a whole other discussion. But
Yeah.
you're better off helping them now so that they can learn to, right on cue, cope with the things that they're dealing with so that it won't cause them duress
Right.
down the line.
Yeah, that's a lot of what we do for children of this age. It's not, let me throw medication on you. It's absolutely not that. It's how do we put the connection together of you're feeling and thinking a certain way,
Yeah.
your thoughts make you feel something, and then the behavior that comes from it is connected to that. So if you're having a meltdown brushing your teeth, what are you thinking about?
Yeah.
I'm afraid, or this is what happened to me, or I want to spend more time with my parent. And then the feeling from it is not great for them afterwards.
Yeah.
In it, they're feeling a certain way. Afterward, they're probably exhausted after going through the whole process. Now, whoever's dealing with it are also exhausted. They don't want anything to do with each other.
And this is so common,
Oh.
like no one's wrong. I mean, it's, people are doing the best they can
They're
do.
doing the best they can, but that's the behavior that results from that
Right.
is I'm mad now and I don't want
Yeah.
to deal with this and I'm
Mhm.
tired and I had a long day and I know you did too, but it's breaking it down in that way to say what's going on? How do we do this differently? I don't want to fight with you. You're exhausted. I know you don't feel good. So how do we back it up and do things differently? What can I help you to do to make this experience better for you
Mhm.
and learn that behavior? It might take 4 to 6 weeks to change the behavior, but be patient, be consistent, and it does. The kids grow older and they learn and they change, and things that were so difficult at 5 and 6 are not an issue at 12 for a lot of kids. It's just part of the growing process.
Yeah.
And both parents need to be on the same page through
Yeah.
this process, right?
Consistency. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's hard if one parent is doing everything, and I think that happens a lot too. That one parent is taking on this role, and there isn't self care, and there isn't that. Hey, you know what? Let me take over tonight. And I think sometimes there's a lot of other issues that come with that. That I do it my way, I do it better, I'm more efficient. But at the same time, like you said, there's the backlash to that if you take on everything yourself.
Absolutely. So coping strategies.
Yeah. So we are big on affirmations. I'm
Mhm.
sure we've all seen like the cute little TikTok videos of people holding their kid in the mirror, like, I am beautiful, I am nice, I am kind.
Mhm.
Which I think we think of those like, oh my God, do people really do that? But it works. And so I kind of like using visuals when I explain why we do the things we do. And so one of the things that you can think of is your brain as a computer, but I like to think of your brain as like paths in the woods. And when you have a negative thought, that is a very well-worn path. It's when you go out in the middle of the woods, you see that path. It's been walked down a million times, and that's how you know where to go. That's the path. Clearly, a million people have taken it. But your brain is made up of all of those paths. It's made up of all of these worn down pathways. And what we want you to do is to create new paths, but with positive thoughts, not negative thoughts. And
Right.
so your brain is like a pathway. The more you walk down it, the more grounded it's going to get, and the easier it's going to be to make it through that path versus like all the brush that's in the way. So you want, like Brianne said, the consistency is going to be important. So, like for example, with the brushing the teeth, I don't know why I keep going back to this, but I think it's probably something people deal with a lot. And then also, I just think it's like a great example because this is like a behavior that's probably coming from a thought, right? So the behavior is that this kid does not want to brush their teeth. Whatever the thought is, let's say the thought, for example, is, I'm not going to do it right. I'm not going to do it right. So I don't want to do it. So a strategy is to use an affirmation. So maybe you take a sticky note and you put it on the mirror in the bathroom that says, I can do this, or I deserve to brush my teeth, or something that's positive that child is going to read every day, that is, again, dispelling the negative and focusing on the positive. And honestly, it's like that old saying, like if someone says something to you enough times, eventually you're going to believe it. There's a reason for that. It's the same thing, but you can do that with a positive thought too. So affirmations is probably one of the more popular things that we focus on, Brianne. But there's a bunch of other stuff too.
And it builds
maybe the parents should be doing that too. So,
Affirmations,
like
family,
everybody
absolutely.
needs
Everybody
to
needs that.
have that
Yes.
blaze that positive
Yep.
pathway. And it
100%.
really does change everything
Yep.
for you. The old saying of the glass is half full or
Yeah.
or half empty, right? It's the same. It's a
and
very basic premise, but what you're saying is that you can personally at home blaze a new path.
yeah, and that's why I really like the CBT games that you can get off Prime, you can get offline, because it's a family game. And it has scenarios like this. Sally said this to you and it hurt your feelings. What would you do about it? And it opens up the conversation. And some of the cards will say, your older sister, smacked you across the head, and, how did you feel about that? Oh, it made me feel sad. It hurt
Oh,
me.
yeah.
And it goes into the emotion. So there's different games that can be played that have the emotion cards and then the feeling cards. And it allows the separation of this is a feeling, this is a thought, and then these are the behaviors. And so I think that might be a really good place for some families to start if they're kind of feeling out of control, but they're not really there yet to get additional help outside of the home, to maybe get one of these CBT games that they can play as a family and
Good
start
idea.
having some of these discussions.
That's a really good idea. If you guys have some time and you want to like share a link or something, that might be, you're like, we have plenty of time. Because our positive pathway says we have so much time. It would be nice maybe if we could, pop some things in, within the next couple of days, just or if you send me a link, I can pop it in of just some things to help our viewers, with the young kids. Obviously, I don't know that these games this type of game would work with the older ones. The teenagers might
but
be like, "How did you feel?"
but they have different scenarios.
That's going to be a
for
fun
them.
one. I can't wait for that
Next
one.
month
Oh
is
yeah.
gonna
Is
be-
that next month?
Yes. Those are
We're going to have a lot
love
of
my
people.
That's
teenagers.
Hannah's
Oh, I can't
wheelhouse.
wait for that.
Those are my peeps.
Yeah. So goal planning. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we mean with that is, like the little strategies that I think Brianne mentioned earlier, like quote unquote, like reward based systems, like, sitting down with your child or children. And I think Brianne had said this earlier, like, what do you want to do? Like, what is it that what is it that we're trying to accomplish here? Why are you feeling overwhelmed? How can I help you to get to the goal that you're trying to reach, whatever that goal may be? That's one thing that we talk about a lot when we do we do something called the COPE manual, which is like a step-by-step like CBT workbook. And that is an entire chapter is on goal planning and reminding kids that they want to think of a goal planning as like planning a cross country road trip. You wouldn't wake up and just get in your car and start driving west to California, right? You would say, we're going to California and we're going to stop at these stops along the way. You would plan it out. So, you would do the same thing with your child. Like, what is your goal? Okay, well, Mom, my goal is I want to buy myself like whatever. Okay, you want to buy yourself, I don't know, a new Xbox. Like, I don't know what the kids are playing these days. But let's just use that as an example. I want to buy myself something nice. Okay, well,
the $3,500 virtual
VR,
reality
exactly.
Apple,
whatever your little heart
thing.
desires, right?
That
I want that, or I want a new
Yeah.
pair of sneakers. Okay, well, what can we do to help you get to that point? All right, well, we know that you need a couple things to get there. Number one, money. And I just, we just bought you something. So maybe this can be something that you can work towards on your own. All right, well, how am I going to get money? Well, I'm willing to, if you want to help out with some chores, I'll give you a weekly allowance. Like, it's like talking through, okay, now what are your barriers? What could stop you from reaching that goal? What do you think could get in the way of you making sure that you save up enough money? Well, what if my friend asked me to come over on a day where I'm supposed to do chores around the house? Like, going through all of the possible scenarios, and then what's the workaround, and then ultimately helping your kid to figure out how they want to, how is the ultimate way that they're going to get there.
So if the child says, well, I'll brush my teeth if you let me make my goal.
Yeah.
This
I mean,
ain't no market bartering here, kiddo.
yeah, I mean, you have to think
No.
that,
Hey, is that a yay or a nay?
well, you have to think how certain kids' brains work.
Right.
If
Okay,
you're
I
a
don't
child
know.
with ADHD,
Okay.
you're dopamine driven. So you're
All
like
right.
the brain of a
Well, I don't know.
gambler.
What is it? Talk to me. What does it
Brain
mean?
of a gambler.
But you're in it to win it. Like, if that's what you want.
Okay,
like,
let's
you
talk
want to
about
win,
what is
you're competitive. Like,
That's-
you're the bartering child.
Oh, really?
Yes, but there might be other kids who that's not how their brain works. And so you
Oh,
have to
alright.
figure out, okay, so you don't care if you are in it to win it and you're going to finish. And, with some children, it's set the timer. How fast can you do it? How good can you do it? Let me do an inspection, and they're like,
So
go about it.
That strategy works for the ADHD kid.
Yeah. And then you have kids that don't want that. So how
No.
does their brain work? What is their intrinsic motivation that, is going to get them to that place? And that's part of the goal planning, because then you can determine, some kids have preset visions in their mind.
Yeah.
And if they don't get that, then that leads to emotional dysregulation. So really knowing what they're thinking, what they're feeling, targeting that is how you're going to be successful to get the other things done that are maybe causing more issues.
And I know we're getting ready to wrap up, so I just want to make sure I say this too, because
Yeah.
obviously the kids, we're talking here a lot about kids, but more to the parents, like take it easy on yourselves. Like you
Right.
are not and will not be the perfect parent. As long as you love and support your child in the best way you can, it's going to work out. Times are different. Like we have two parent households where both of the parents are working. The time might not be there that, a lot of families now are two income households versus one where one parent could stay. People can't afford to do those things anymore. Life has gotten too expensive. And so we're all just doing the best that we can. So, I don't want people to I think that's another part of this is, like you had said, affirmations for everyone, like remembering that it's not just about the kids, but if it's like a healthy parent, healthy child. So don't forget to take care of yourselves too, in however that looks, because being a parent is really difficult. And especially in these times, I think it's probably like more difficult than ever. So, just do the best you can. The fact that even for the people that ask questions, the mere fact that you are reaching out and asking for questions and asking for help tells me everything I need to know about you being a good parent. Because if you didn't care, you wouldn't be seeking out those answers.
And I know when I was growing up, there was no conversation. I mean, it was, this my way or the highway kind of thing. And I really love what you said earlier in the show when you were talking about how talk to your children like they're adults and explain to them. They understand more than you think at a very young age if you understand the whole family component, that you all need to rely upon each other to make everything work. I loved that.
Yeah.
And kids can understand.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I have to say, though, I am very much looking forward to next month.
So excited.
We got to, we have to talk about a lot of stuff. Like,
Oh, yeah.
But even, the kids, let's just talk about the Taylor Swift concert.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know how many parents spent thousands of dollars that they did not have?
Yeah.
So their child could. I want to talk about this stuff. And what do the parents do?
It's going to be a no for me, dog.
No, you know what?
There's so many things that come from it, and just the experience.
Yeah. I don't want to give anything away. No, we want people to watch. But I want to.
I'm with you. There's a lot. There's a lot to that.
There's so much. I mean, at least the little kids, you still have a little bit of control, right? I don't know. I don't know what I'm hearing today. I don't know that that's true. Just eat the freaking green bean, all right? I gotta go to work. No, that's emotional dysregulation. You can't do that.
Oh yeah.
And you got to watch what you say, because they're very smart. They're very smart, and they'll use it against you.
Let's go in front of them.
Hannah said it was my emotional dysregulation.
Green beans. Green beans are great. I don't know. We have to laugh or we'll cry, right? I think you guys should have, well, I'm not going to volunteer you for this. You have no time. But wouldn't it be cool if there was like a parenting group, like a Facebook group, and, you could have various therapists in there periodically just answering questions. I don't know. I know.
Yeah.
You're like, Veronica. Okay.
It's like every day is something new.
Yep.
So
I know. I'm sure there's a bunch of groups out there, but I hope they're being run by people that are professionals, because I think that's kind of critical sometimes, especially when they're young, just to make sure that the information they're getting is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, ladies. I want to also, I don't know if you want to talk about, you have some fun and exciting things happening, and I
Mhm.
just want you to share them because I'm really happy for you both.
Thank you.
You
Go ahead,
have,
Brianne.
you
Boss
have,
lady.
okay, you're opening another location.
Yeah, so Hannah and I work both at Seahorse Behavioral in Marion, and
Mhm.
we're expanding to a second location, which we're really excited about in the Middleborough area. Um, and Hannah, you want to talk a little bit about how it's going to be different than our
Yeah.
Marion location?
Mm.
It's probably going to have a little bit more of a heavier focus on therapy. We're going to have hopefully a couple therapists that are going to be working there, and also going to be expanding our treatments into offering medication assisted treatment for patients who are suffering from substance use
Yeah.
disorder. So we're really excited to be able to expand and reach out to people in the recovery community, and also just offer, more access to therapy because the need is there. So we're excited.
Yeah,
Yeah, the need is definitely there. I think we talked about that on the
Yeah.
last show that
and
people just cannot, get in. There just aren't enough
yeah.
therapists,
We're
you know.
really excited to be building up some partnerships. I think right now we have potentially 3 new social workers that are going to be coming on board and have experience in trauma and many different issues, which is kind of after COVID is really what we're seeing, that people really want that type of therapy. And we'll also be doing our therapy for treatment resistant depression at both locations, so
Mhm.
that's really exciting too, to be able to give more access with different treatments in the 2 locations.
Well, I just want to thank you, ladies, so much for making time
Yeah, thank
doing the VTALKS podcast. I love working with the two of you. You're smart and lovely and compassionate, and I know that you're helping our viewers maneuver through everything. And I appreciate you.
We
Oh, we
appreciate you.
appreciate you
Thank you.
too.
And next month, what's the date next month? Do we remember? I don't remember. I don't know. It's Tuesday.
The week after the 4th of July. I think it's the
Yeah,
11th. July
there we
11th.
go.
Yep.
July 11th. Okay, so part
See you then.
2 of our parenting series. We will be talking about the teenagers.
Fireworks, baby, right
Yeah,
around the
let's
4th of July.
go.
Right. All right.
Okay,
Great. Thank you
thank
so
you.
much. I'm going to end. It's 8:03, but we're almost on time.
Yeah.
Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
One by one. Let's see. We got one there. Bye, honey.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to part 1 of our 3-part parenting series. And I will be back next Tuesday with our favorite doctor, Michael Wild, the functional medicine doctor. And I'm actually not sure what the topic is. Michael, if you're listening, we need to come up with something. But anyway, all right, everybody. I want you to have a good night, and I will see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.